just so you can see on it, other people's questions. Like this. So can you grab that now? So you grab that.
This is probably.
What is that thing right there? Are you going on Zoom over there?
YouTube. Unless you don't want to do YouTube.
I mean, you're already live, so.
It's up to you which one you want.
What do we do with people on YouTube, on Zoom, guys?
Well, can they see you through that camera?
Huh?
Can they see you through that camera?
For everyone who's already here, if you're ever interested throughout the talk, or if you want to come up now because you know you might have some questions and want to write them down, feel free to come get paper and pen. It's up to you. You don't have to. If you want. Yeah, I'm gonna go on either someone's phone. I don't know. So we're good on YouTube, IG, Zoom, and
Can I log you out of your Zoom?
Next time.
Oh, look at that. Maybe that. I don't know, it's a little better. It's a little I think we're about ready.
Almost. You guys let me know when. And here's the paper for if and when.
Okay. Jeff.
the corner of Maria.
Oh my gosh. There's so many.
A little over. Keep going. There we go.
Yeah. So they get to watch it on that screen.
That's cool.
Hey.
Keep going.
grab this tea.
Oh, we're going to the same time.
Would it make sense to connect this mic on this? Would it make sense to connect this mic? What are you guys using this room for? Just to see me? Oh, you guys are using this room just to see me, right? So
No,
I'll just
for
connect.
the so you can get on and check your questions.
So how are they going to hear me?
They'll let us know if we can hear you.
Okay, so what are you going to use for entertainment?
If you want me to use that.
That's what I'm for.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. All right, we can start.
Now I'm gonna stay on Zoom. If you don't have my link, then I'm going to show everyone.
Because you want to screen share?
Huh?
Because you want to screen share?
I'm going to use screen share.
Okay.
Because I have it.
All right, then do you want me to get off?
Huh?
Do you want me to get off?
So you can say, I'm just gonna stay on.
Okay.
Make me a co-host. Make me a co-host. Make me a co-host.
Co-host. Hi, people. Hi, everyone.
They can hear you.
Yeah.
Do you know how to make a circle?
Yes, that is right.
Go for it. I think we just grab a seat and maybe keep track of questions on here.
Are you on my group?
Okay.
Are you on my group?
Yeah.
Are you on there?
Yeah. Everything's on set.
I will still
There's
We're doing, to start this conversation. I'm Jenny. I have the pleasure of meeting everyone who's here right now. We might have some more people trickling in. But I'm here to sit with all of you and be part of this conversation. And I'm here to introduce you and also welcome my friend Jeff and his other team of people over there in High Street Studios. We hope that this is the first of many more conversations. So thank you guys all for being here, everyone. Thank you. I'm passing it over to Jeff.
Yay, thanks,
Hi,
Jenny.
everyone. First of all, I just want to say thank you guys for just like coming up here today on a Saturday when we can be doing anything else. First and foremost, something I wanted to ask first is I wanted to say if it was okay with you guys if we can like social distance and I can speak with you guys with my mask off so you can hear me. I mean, I know I have a mic here too, but I feel like I don't want to do this the entire time. Or I'll just make it work, but I feel like it's going to be too distracting. I'm okay with projecting my voice. Can you guys hear me okay? And if you feel uncomfortable, just let me know, yes? Just making sure, oh my God, let's mute all the people, because it's right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, just making sure you guys are comfortable. Cool with everyone. I'll stay here, and if I move anywhere else, I'll put my mask on. Just so you guys can feel comfortable. I'm really excited. I'm really excited, and I'm also very grateful that you guys are here. There's many conversations that we need to have as a community, as a society. Yeah, I've been holding these discussions for the past few months in regards of numerous topics. Topics in regards of sensuality, sex, things that we are afraid to speak of. Masculine divinity, feminine divinity, and just the whole dynamic between masculine and feminine, and as well as the racial gap. One of the specific topics I wanted us to speak about today is the societal gap that we have in our society today, which includes more than specific racism. Yes, the racial gap we have, not just racism, but just a distinct racial gap that we have in our community. And so I'm not sure if you guys received papers or pens or whatever, but I want us, first and foremost, I want you guys to understand and feel safe here in this space. Yeah, this is the space that I want you guys to allow yourself to be vulnerable, be comfortable. There's no such things as stupid questions. Here, you are allowed to be ignorant. Yes, it's okay to be ignorant. I know a lot of times we look at, oh, you're being ignorant. There's being ignorant and closed and being ignorant and open. Yeah, when you're ignorant and closed up, you're not open to receiving opportunities and information that can change your perspective. When you're ignorant and open, you're open. You do want to learn. You do not know what you do not know. Yes? And so let's really make sure we respect each other's words, perspectives, as well as each other's space. Yeah, this is a space for all of us. Like, I want to create a space for all of us where we can communicate, be conscious, be aware, and just start to heal something that's been needed to be healed for like eons, for decades. Just not from our culture and specific ethnicities, but basically the human race. Yeah, and all from past generations to like now. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. So something else I'd like to say is I want you to be okay with asking any questions, anything, yeah, and specific in regards to the Black Latin culture. Yes, that's what we're going to speak about today. I want you all to let me know what questions are you afraid to ask? There's many questions a lot of us are afraid to ask, but don't feel comfortable asking. Yes, this is a judge-free zone. Yeah, like Planet Fitness, this is a judge-free zone. I will not judge you. You will not be judged. Trust me. A lot of questions you will ask me, I will not be surprised. I've been asked quite a few questions, and I feel honored that people can trust me to hold these discussions, as well as ask me certain questions that makes each other feel vulnerable. Yeah, I want us to be okay with feeling vulnerable and being in the space. I want us to feel okay with creating a bridge where we can allow each other to heal each other. Yeah, it's not just you also asking me questions. I will have questions to ask you as well, because I don't know everything. Yes, I'm not a person who feels they know everything. I'm learning as I go throughout the journey of life, as we speak, as the rest of us are too, right? Makes sense? So, first of all, let's just take like 3 deep breaths. Yes, just 3 beautiful deep breaths. Inhale, breathe it in, exhale. Inhale one time. Exhale. One last one. Inhale. Exhale. Okay. In regards to bridging the racial gap, let's get started with that, yes. Did anyone hand them cards, paper?
Does anyone want paper?
Give them paper. In case you are afraid to ask questions out loud, write it down. Write it down, and I don't have to call you and be like, ask me the question we're working on. Just ask what you feel, or write it down, and then I'll do the best of my ability to answer the best way that I can. I have a lot of questions. Let's do this.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Something I want to share first in regards to just Black culture. Let's start with Black history, yes? February being Black History Month. Something I feel is really interesting is someone said to me, most people won't support you until they see it's popular to support you. And then I switched it to, most people won't support something until they see it's popular to support something. Yeah. What's interesting about that is Black History Month. With everything that's been happening in the past year, yes, Black Lives Matter movement, these organizations almost basically capitalizing off of a culture, yes, capitalizing off of each other's pain, right? In regards to Black History Month, a lot of things I realized, a lot of situations, let's speak just from the space of just information, like schools. I speak to my students, I'm a dance teacher, yeah, I've also taught in colleges. A lot of students I've asked, especially in regards to Black History Month, I ask, what are you learning? Most of the time they don't even know. Yes, let me remind you, most of the time, if you have kids, your kids aren't being taught about Black history. Now, in regards to Black History Month, it's not something that's just associated in 1 month. This country was built with Black human beings as a collective. Yes, this country was built off of slavery. Yeah. So American history is also Black history from the beginning till now. And these things we just often forget. We're not taught, especially in schools, that our history does not start with slavery. It definitely doesn't. We are not taught who we were before slavery even started. Yes? And something I wanted to just put out, just a fun fact in regards to Black History Month. Who was it? There's someone named Dr. Carter G. Wilson. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with him. Anyone? Perfect. I'm gonna take you guys to school real quick. Dr. Carter G. Wilson. He was an African. Yeah. He created Black History Week in 1926. Yes. He created Black History Week in 1926. Guess that 1 month. What month he did that? In February. Fun, right? And he was part of you guys can come in. He was part of a group. He created a group. Oh, this is a long name. Well, he created an establishment, an organization called Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, because he realized there was a lot of schools that were not teaching Black history. If they're learning about history, they're teaching slavery, and then after that. Yeah, but we don't know about the many human beings that have done so much in regards to American culture to create so much. For example, streetlights created by Black human. Yes, a lot of the entertainment industry created by the Black culture. Yeah, just so many things that we are not aware of, especially when it comes to music. Rock, it's also from Black culture. Blues, Black culture. Yeah, music, art, a lot of it, or really a lot of it. The thing is, it's not saying that it is mine, it is ours. No, we create these things so we can all benefit from it. Yeah, so paying homage to those who have created it and paying our respects. So we're like, oh, we understand where it comes from and we understand how much it's providing for us today in this world, yeah? Now, Dr. Carter G. Wilson, although he created this association, created Black History Week, 1926. This association he created was in 1915. And in 1926, that's when he created Black History Week, which changed into Black History Month later on down the line. And what's really interesting, something I want to read you a passage by one of his books. If you guys haven't heard from him, definitely look him up. He has numerous books in regards to Black history. He wanted to specifically create a book and distribute information of a bunch of successful Black people and Black creation that we've created that is involved in the United States today or throughout that time as we speak, that many of us aren't aware of, if that makes sense, yeah? Something he says that he started when it was recognized as turning into Black History Month was, he said, Negro History Week would be unnecessary when all Americans would willingly recognize the contributions of Black Americans as a legitimate and integral part of the history of this country. That's how I feel about Black History Month. I don't feel Black History Month is necessary because we've been a part of the history from the beginning until now. It's just, we just need to integrate it into the books, into the schools, into the institutions, into the organizations, and normalize that instead of saying, oh, they've done a few things here. Now let's teach you about the rest of the people of our history, which is predominantly European white-based, if that makes sense, yes? And not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but how about paying also respect to the Africans who also helped build this country as well? Does that make sense? Yes? Again, if nothing makes sense, please raise your hand and let me know, ask whatever questions you need to ask, yeah? Hit me.
Recall about a year or so ago, there was a gal who worked for the NAACP. She was adopted possibly where she had Black siblings were adopted into her family. She had a Black culture. She was white. She masked herself on a regular basis for a long period of time. No one knew she had been masking herself. And then they came down on her. What do you feel about that?
They came down on her in what reason, you believe?
Well, I'm asking you to shed a little light to all of us. No, I think you.
No, I've heard of it. I just want to hear your perspective.
My perspective is, she wanted to meld more in with the culture that she was helping and feeling good about. I don't know her whole background. I didn't ever research it. And maybe I needed to, but here's an opportunity to get a little bit back and be like, and I'm not looking for where she's wrong or right. I just kind of want your feeling.
Well, what's beautiful about this, and that's a beautiful question because there's actually a bunch of questions I was also asked that relate exactly to that. So let's just get right into it. And so in regard to that situation, yes, she was adopted by Black family, correct? And she's white. And she grew up in the culture, so she sees herself as an embodiment of the Black community. Makes sense. Where it may cause discrepancies is her feeling as if she's just as much involved in a culture where others may see that she's not involved because of her skin color. Skin color plays a huge factor in our society today, yeah? Just simply from our skin color, that has what's caused the separation. Just simply with the color of your skin, that what gives you a privilege, and I don't get the same resources as you would have. So the fact that she could see herself as part of a community, but to others, they're like, no, you're not part of that community, you're white. And she's like, what do you mean? I was raised by a family that were all Black, so I'm just as much as a part of the community than you are. issues. Now, the biggest issue is there's other people, especially in the Black community, who are angry. Yes, now say this. There's people in our community who are still angry, who still carry resentment, who are still emotional, who are not healed from these past traumas that we've been going through for generations and generations and generations. And generations that has passed on to us. Even my own family have passed these certain thoughts and ideas to me to make me feel as if I can't make a difference, that there's always going to be racism and we can't make a change. So therefore I decided to do things like this. And people will tell me you're wasting time. And I'm like, okay, I'm still going to be doing things like this because Martin Luther King made a difference. Malcolm X made a difference. Stokely Carmichael made a difference. Angela Davis made a difference. All these great human beings made a difference. You know, and a lot of people told them they were wasting their time. A lot of people were spitting on them, calling them names, beating on them. You know, and so in regards to that situation, there's always going to be angry people. Yes, as long as she is connected to the people who she was raised by, and stays true to her honesty, because we know in our heart what's right and what's wrong. Yeah, we feel what's right and what's wrong. It's important to always pay respects, which I feel she does, and she did. She loves her family. She was adopted by a Black family. And the reason why I resonate with her story is because I was also taken in by a white family myself. And I've gone through situations where I was kicked out at a young age and I had nowhere to go and a white family took me in. And I was like, huh. And I learned so much going just from family to family, from the streets to different households, and like very interesting. And so learning just different dynamics of family situations and realizing that it's at the end of the day, it's not about the color of your skin, but about your heart and what you carry, and how you truly connect with each other, how you truly see someone, not just by what you're looking at, but how you feel with them, how you connect with them. Does that make sense? Yeah. And I resonate with her because she, just like myself, will always get shit on because of what she feels and who she's trying to represent. Because I will stand here and I will stick up for the white community too. And be like, hey, listen, they may be ignorant as fuck and they don't know, but they don't know what they don't know. Some people actually do want to change. Some people actually do want to learn. But we cannot help them learn if we're going to sit here and be angry at those who ask us questions to cause and to not cause, but to bridge a gap. Yes? If you ask me a question and I get mad at you for asking an honest question, how are we going to create a healing? Does that make sense? Yeah, so in regards to that situation, to me, there's no right or there's no wrong, it's just what is. If she keeps paying her respects to the culture, to her family, that's all she needs to do. She doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. I don't need to prove anything to anyone.
That's kind of where she lost her job.
Yeah, yeah.
She lost the work she was doing.
Yeah.
So,
because of all these situations.
Yeah,
yeah, it was the same thing with Martin Luther King. When he spoke out against the war of Vietnam, he lost a lot of respect.
And then when people like Mandela put it, or the people incarcerated, they do the greatest work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like when you hold something down, they do the greatest work.
Yep. And so it's a huge issue. It's a huge issue. Again, we will only support those we feel follow our own conditions. Yeah. So if I will only love you if you follow my way of what I feel needs to be the truth. Yes, I will only support you and follow you and give you all my resources only if you listen to my conditions. It's conditional love. Yeah, we live in a society where we base things out of conditional love, and we don't even realize it. We aren't conscious of our unconscious actions. And so the reason why I do these discussions so we can have conscious people have unconscious people be conscious of their unconscious actions. Confusing, right? Unconscious people be conscious of our unconscious actions. Yes? So it's a huge thing. It's a huge thing that we have to be aware of. So a question to get right into it that I was asked before I get to these questions here and you guys' question, just to ease it out. Normal question that a lot of people ask me was, let's see, rioting. Why the riots, Jeff? Why are there riots? Why are the riots happening? Martin Luther King said, rioting is the language of the unheard. Yes, we are not rioting because we want to and we are heard. We are rioting because we have not been being heard for years and years and years and years. It's a pattern. It happens all the time. It's happened recently. It happened in the 90s, happened in the 80s, it happened in the 70s, and it definitely happened in the 60s. It definitely happened in the 70s, early 70s, late 60s, especially after the whole MLK incident, especially after the whole Malcolm X incident. Because of all these, oh my God, they were, I'm losing the word, help me. They were...
Legislation?
No, when they were shot, they were
Oh.
assassinated. Yes, they were assassinated. A lot of people got angry for that. Yeah, when there's riots, it's not like we're trying to act out of anger. So let me give you an example. Let's say I'm riding a bike, yes, and you're riding a bike in front of me. And you have your headphones in, and I'm riding, and you're in front of me, and I'm going to go past because I'm going a little fast. And so I'm saying, excuse me. You don't hear me the first time. I'm like, okay, excuse me, I am on your left. You don't hear me the second time. I'm screaming, excuse me, I am on your left. You don't hear me the third time, and you're swaying back and forth, just enjoying your life. And I'm like, excuse, and then we collide. Yes? That's what these riots are about. From generations to generations. Excuse me, we are being oppressed. No one's listening to us. Excuse me, we are being oppressed. We're still not being heard. Excuse me, we are being oppressed. Then you have riots. It's like a child. When a child is not being heard, when a child is not being felt, when a child is not being fed, what does it do? A baby, what does it do? We all know because we all dealt with children, right? What does a baby do? Screams, cries.
It's upset.
Yes? Temper tantrums, right? That's what that is. We all have an inner child inside of us. Yeah, that's what that is. Not saying it's okay, but we have no other way to communicate. We're not being heard. We can send you notes, we won't be heard. We can create an organization, we still won't be heard. But if we take it to the streets and protest, maybe something will be heard. If we keep speaking and having these discussions, maybe we will be heard. Yeah, and so again, it's not saying that these riots are okay, but we just want to be heard. We are emotional, and we are sad, and we are crying, and we are afraid. Fear is very powerful, especially when you're not aware of that fear. Does that make sense? So, riots. That's why the riots. Because it's been going on and on and on and on, and we're tired of just not being heard, especially with the whole George Floyd incident. Yes? That these things happen, like, continuously. What bothered me about that was, it wasn't just even that. What broke me down was when I exposed my father. And I'll never forget this. I went to go visit him. It was late at night. He came back from work and he was watching the news. And I despise when you watch the news because the news always, I feel, always shows negative things. Like when you hear about someone like saving someone's life, you do. Sometimes you do, but it's a rare thing. It's like gossip. It's like the news to me is like high school. Just a lot of gossip. Yes, and so he was watching news, and I'm just like, all right, here we go. Just shut it off. And what broke me was he was like, they did it again. What are you talking about, Papa? He's like, they did it again. And he's like, he looked at me and he's like, they took my brother again from me. I'm like, what are you? And I understood what he was saying. He's like, that's my brother they just killed. They just put his knee on his, they just put their knee on his neck for minutes until his last breath. And no one even did anything about it. Again, this has happened before and it still keeps happening. And he's like, I have to be afraid for my life because that can happen to me. That could have happened to you. That can happen to any one of us. That's what broke me. And I was just like, oh wow. Because we look at it as not a random human, but this is family to us. These are our family members. Like we have to look out for each other because these types of things happen all the time. And a bunch of it goes unnoticed. A bunch of it doesn't even go through media. Now imagine the things that have gone unnoticed. There's been a bunch of things, especially in Massachusetts. Something recently happened in Lowell that is not on media about someone who was tossed over the bridge. And people are asking for the Lowell Department Police of what happened, but they're not letting out any information on that. So that's not on media, right? Crazy, it's crazy. Because imagine what would happen if that was put out on media again after this whole thing happened. Yeah, so again, fear. Fear is a huge thing. It's a huge thing. When we don't create the space to listen to each other, then we're going to scream. Yeah, we're going to do the things to get that attention. Yes? Now to move on to something else someone asked is, does privilege exist? If so, what is it? Does privilege exist? If so, what is it? Beautiful question. You guys are going to answer what is privilege to you?
Skin color.
Skin color.
In this country, my sister grew up as a minority in another area. As you said, it's as simple as that. And how do we bridge that? Difficult.
Skin color. Yeah, I got you. Always.
That's what we tried to bridge it. She was ostracized.
Right. Skin color. What else?
I was just going to say all the advantages that you did nothing to earn. So it could be skin color or generational wealth or being able-bodied,
right,
not having a disability.
Right. Yeah.
I think the one I've been seeing with a lot over the last year is being in a position of privilege to be able to step away and not be forced to live with or have to engage very privileged right now in all aspects.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I feel like there's something to be said about privileges that you're born with and privileges that you earn.
One more time, sorry.
I think there's something to be said about privileges that you're born with and one that you earn yourself.
Yes.
Just basic bodily safety, walking down the street, getting to live openly who you are, being celebrated in society, being comfortable speaking up first, and picking up space.
Oh yeah. That's a beautiful question. Does privilege exist? If so, what is it? Does privilege exist? Excuse my language, but fuck yes, it does exist. Are you kidding me? Does privilege exist? Yes. If so, what is it? To me, privilege is a head start. How I see privilege in regards of race is simply this, because this is what happened. We are going to free the slaves. Let's free the slaves. Yes, let's give them freedom. You're no longer slaves. Good luck. Go, figure it out. Wait, we don't have boats to go back to our country. We don't have house. We don't have money. We don't have any resources to take care of our own children, babies. Oh, on top of that, we're being chased after. On top of that, we're being lynched. On top of that, we're being beaten. On top of that, we can't escape from slavery. Because even when slavery was a thing, when it was abolished, it wasn't abolished all at the same time. It took years for it to completely be abolished. And even when it was completely abolished, there were still people who were holding on to their slaves. You're not going to leave. And there's some people who stayed as slaves because if they went out there, they're going to get killed. Yes, so again, slavery is having, not slavery, privilege is having a head start in your life or having resources over those who do not have the privilege to have the same resources as you. Yeah. Now, an example I would like to show you, a video I got for you guys, which I think is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful video that shows what privilege is. I'd like to share. And for those of you who are on Zoom, let me share this with you guys as well. Let's see. So listen to the video.
Line up! Line up! Everybody line up! We're about to race! Everybody line up! Shoulder to shoulder, take off your backpack. Fastball, line up, we're about to race. And we're racing for $100. The winner of this race will take this $100 bill. Before I said go, I'm gonna make a couple statements. If those statements apply to you, I want you to take 2 steps forward. If those statements don't apply to you, I want you to stay right where you're at. Take 2 steps forward. If both of your parents are still married, take 2 steps forward. If you grew up with a father figure in the home, take 2 steps forward if you have access to private education. Take 2 steps forward if you have access to a free tutor growing up. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to worry about your cell phone being shut off. Take 2 steps forward if you never had to go longer down with bills. Take 2 steps forward if it wasn't because of your athletic ability, you don't have to pay for college. Take 2 steps forward if you never wondered where your next meal was going to come from. I want you guys up here in the front just to turn. Look. Every statement I've made has nothing to do with anything any of you have done. Has nothing to do with decisions you've made. Everything I've said has nothing to do with what you've done. Well, those of you up here have a better opportunity to win this $100. Does that mean these people back here can't race? No. We're going to be foolish to not realize we've been given more opportunity. We don't want to recognize that we've been given a head start. But the reality is we have. Now, there's no excuse. They we still gotta run that race. You still gotta run that race. And whoever wins this $100, I think it'd be extremely foolish of you not to utilize that and learn more about somebody else's story. Because the reality is, if this is a fair race, and everybody's back on that ride, I guarantee you some of these black people can smoke all of you. And it's only because you have this thing of a head start that you're possibly going to win this race. All right. That is a picture of life, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing you've done has put you in the lead that you're in right now. When I say go, on your mark, get set, go!
Does that make sense? Can you guys hear that okay? Yeah. So something I wrote in regards to that was, you can't shackle and chain someone for hundreds of years and then liberate them freely to compete with the rest and still justly believe that you've been fair. It's about having a head start intrinsically built into your life. It's not saying your life isn't hard, it's just your skin color hasn't contributed to the difficulty of your life. Yes? And to me, that's what privilege is, especially when we speak of white privilege as well. It's not being conscious of things or aware of things that you have that others don't. And it happens in so many different ways. There's so many moments in time, I myself, as well as other people of my friends or family who are Black or African, that really go out of the way to make others feel comfortable. For example, I realize my presence sometimes makes people feel uncomfortable. For example, I've seen many times where I'm walking on the sidewalk and a lady will literally cross the street, still walk, and once she gets past me, and then she goes back. And this happened recently, like just 2 years ago or something, when I was just walking. I drive a lot, but when I was walking somewhere, I saw her and I stopped just to like watch to see what she was doing. And I was just like, huh. And what was interesting, once she crossed the street and went back to the same sidewalk we were on, she walked back towards me to just go to a store. I was like, interesting. I'm like, wow, it's shocking that things like this still happen. And it's sad because a lot of times we go out of our way to make white people feel comfortable. For example, if I see a lot of white people in an elevator, I will not walk in, just so they do not feel uncomfortable with my presence being in the elevator with them. If I see a couple walking down the street and I'm there, I fix myself. I'll take my hat, fit sideways, I'll put it forward, or I'll take my hat off, or I'm like, shit, my pants on, let me pick it up. Let me show them that I am not a thug, that they do not need to feel threatened by me. I am also a human. There's times where one of my favorite ones is where I go to a store and I am in line, and a lot of times I'll have people get in front of me. If they walk in and they're not in line, and they kind of just barge in and just put their items on the counter or whatever. I'm like, yeah, no, it's fine. I just let it happen or whatever. Because I don't want them to feel attacked. I don't want them to feel as if I'm going to attack you for stepping in my zone, stepping in my space or whatever. But being able to let you be okay and feel safe around me. But I've also realized that allowing these things to happen without discussing these things is also allowing that privilege. Right? So me not saying anything or me allowing someone to go in front of me being like, oh, were you here? And you clearly saw I was there first, but you still moved in front anyways. And I'm like, no, it's okay, it's fine, you can go. Or me moving across the street so a couple can just walk down a sidewalk happily without being worried, or me putting my foot down so a couple doesn't have to, or a lady doesn't have to pull her purse closer to herself and think I'm going to rob her, because stuff like that does happen and we don't even realize it yet. Now, so I want you guys to also think about these things. When has there been times where you felt uncomfortable being around someone who is Black, African? Yes? Where you feel as if you needed to change your mannerisms to feel comfortable or to feel safe, not even comfortable, to feel safe so that you are not getting attacked or going to get robbed or get shot, killed, or whatever ideas that has been put into the mindset of people.
I have a quick question. If you can take your life back 40 years or 30 years,
Yeah.
have things changed for you for the better to any degree? Or has it been, what level can you put that on a scale?
Yeah. In the past 50 years, I mean, I haven't been alive for 50 years, but
I'm getting for
I've been,
your wife, you worry
no,
about.
I mean, I can tell you from research I've done that I've seen the difference of, because I do a lot of research when it comes to just history in general. I've seen a lot of progress. I've seen a lot of places where we have made a difference, especially in society. But the difference I do not see is it's not acknowledged where it needs to be acknowledged in so many different ways, in so many different factors. I've seen us more integrated in so many different ways, but integrated in ways where now it's mandatory to have Black people in an institution or in a job. I mean, cool, but like now it's out of sympathy, right? Now it's an obligation that you have to now because they've gone through all this now. Now it's out of sympathy, you know, and that's a huge thing. And I'm going to get to you in a moment. Just need to say this one quick thing, and that relates right back to Black History Month. A lot of people play the game of, oh, it's Black History Month, now it's time to support. I would hate to be supported with everything I do in my life if it's out of sympathy. I would rather you support me because you believe in the work I do. You believe in the purpose that I have. You believe in the things that I am creating for society. To support for the purpose of what we're doing as opposed to support out of sympathy. To support out of empathy as opposed out of sympathy. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because when you empathize with something, you feel someone, and you also feel their purpose and the difference that they're trying to make, then that makes you want to contribute to their purpose as well. But when you do things, you're like, ooh, I feel bad, I'll give you some of this. It doesn't feel good. It just genuinely does not feel good in the soul and the heart to us in general. Especially with like both Black History Month, let us try to support all these things. There's a lot of Black people who do not support Black Lives Matter. There's a lot of people who don't support that entire movement. Because again, people will follow things when it's popular. And that's what seems to be popular at the moment. And then once it dies down, now no one will want to speak about it. Because now on social media, after or before the whole George Floyd thing, we were having these type of discussions. Yeah, and there weren't things that, or forums, discussions, or institutions, or organizations, besides the big one that we know, like NAACP and others, or the FCLC, that are creating spaces or opportunities for us to just connect and bridge a gap that's just been happening for just so long, you know? But what were you going to say back there?
Well, I'm definitely interested in the conversation around Black Lives Matter, and your feelings about it and what we're feeling in Ipswich for sure. So I was going to make a comment on, we were sharing a story about you in the store and someone walking, someone cuts it off in line, and like, of course, the assumption is to walk away or something.
Yeah.
And as a white person in the store, I know, because I would say, well, who's the person in line? Like, I would always point out, like, any level of what you feel like a micro, like, injustice, when, no matter what. But I just wanted, I think it's an interesting story to listen to, because one of the reasons that I'm here today, and I'm really interested in a very white place, and I think a lot about race, I think a lot about privilege and equity, in a lot of ways, not just racial equity. But that's an example that really sticks to me, because it happens absolutely anywhere. It does happen all the time. And I'm sure that a lot of folks who have white privilege, me and every other white person, may not even notice or know in that moment if it's the right opportunity to say something.
Right.
And, I thought it was such a poignant example, because I'm sure we've all been in that.
Yeah. In regards to your question of Black Lives Matter, right, the movement, what do I feel about it? Is that what you're asking as well?
Yeah, I never told every possible white person in my hand the story.
Right. I just want to make sure I'm understanding where you're at. Yeah. To answer that, I think it's cute. Like, it's cute. Black Lives Matter, cute, cool. Like, that's honestly how I feel about it. It's cute, but what are we doing? You can Black Lives Matter, but like, what are we doing? What are we doing? What organization are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, what we need to organize and mobilize. Yeah, we need to create discussions. We need to create organizations. We need to create institutions in regards to these things. What are we actually doing to provide opportunities as well as build a bridge to gap these issues? What are we doing besides sharing things on social media and sharing facts or sharing these things of all this toxic and destructivity that's happening? What are we actually physically doing about it? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of people who told me that I'm wasting my time with these discussions. And I'm like, okay, but I'm doing something. I was like, talk to me when you start doing something. Because if we don't start doing this, then we're going to repeat the same damn patterns we've been repeating for generations to generations to generations and generations. Because I know my lineage is carrying a lot of pain from things that we've gone through. And I'm not trying to pass that on to the next generation or my children or to the children that I teach. Yeah, I'm trying to create a healing through myself, and then so I can share my wisdom, and then also create a space for others to heal, to understand, to comprehend, overstand, and understand, and create a conscious society where we can be aware of each other's pain. Doesn't mean we have to agree. We don't have to agree. We can still agree to disagree, but we have to at least move in the same path.
You know what I mean? Yes.
Thanks, Eddie. Just gonna, go back to maybe your question about, or your topic about education. And also the video, you know, it felt to me like that was a real enlightening moment for the white kids in that video. So it felt like, in my opinion, like a painful experience, or like a kind of moment for the kids of color. And I'm a high school history teacher, and I figure out like what is the right way to sort of teach the history of the country and the world without having to be a super downer. So there's this sort of massive narrative that is very powerful. Of like, you know, going from the explorers to Thanksgiving and pilgrims to Declaration of Independence, liberty, and that kind of thing.
That's beautiful.
And there's the violence along the way, but it was all in the name of liberty.
Right.
I'm wondering, like a counter narrative that how would you kind of go about teaching, like, or explaining the history of this country in a way that honors contributions of African Americans and everyone else?
Yeah.
Without having to be about sort of oppression, possibly.
Gotcha. First off, to finish off in regard to Black Lives Matter movement, something I want to add on to that is I love the idea about it. I just want more organization off of it. Yeah. I don't want it to be. It already is. It's something that's trending. Yeah. It's cool that it's a trend, but what organizations are we creating off of it? What opportunities are we creating through it? Who are we building off of it so we can provide for certain communities? Does that make sense? That's why I say I feel like it's cute. I feel like it's cute, but I feel like we can do a lot more with just Black Lives Matter, because it's the same idea as Black Power. When Stokely Carmichael, if you guys know who he is, Quantere, Stokely Carmichael came out with the idea of Black Power in the 60s. And it's the same type of idea, but he didn't just say Black Power and everyone just said, oh, Black Power, and attached to some Black identity of it. But he said Black Power and then was creating organizations off of Black Power. He was getting gangs together, gangs together to support the community. He was getting institutions together to hold discussions. He was getting communities together to come together with families to see what they can build in the neighborhoods for the children, because they were not getting the same resources that white neighborhoods were getting in this hood, if that makes sense, you know what I mean? So like, that's why I say Black Lives Matter movement is cute, but we can definitely do more. Like, we can definitely do more. That's how I feel about that. Now, to answer that question, that's a beautiful question because, like I said, Dr. Carter G. Wilson, you're his history teacher, right? Yeah. Did they tell you about him?
No.
He's a history teacher. Keep that in mind, yeah? And I don't want to put you on the spot to make you feel stupid, but like, does it like, it's for me, that's crazy because we're learning history of America, but they hold back so much about history of just Black people, yes? And so for me, I would say, one, it's okay to show the sad parts because everyone needs to see the sad parts, yes? Two, do your own research, because the things that they made in the system that says this is what we want you to teach, they're going to leave out a lot of bullshit. Yes, and when I mean by bullshit, I mean like they're going to leave a lot of heavy truths out that they do not want to share. Example, like a lot of people don't know about Carter G. Wilson, Dr. Carter G. Wilson, and a lot of people don't know about Stokely Carmichael. Have you heard of Stokely Carmichael? Yeah. Quantere, yes? He's not taught. I wasn't taught about these people when I was in elementary, and I wasn't taught about them, period. Yeah, so it's being able to do your research and get others involved. What I mean by that is, if you're a history teacher, get someone from the Black community to come teach your history class. I don't say take your job, I'm saying have them come in for a class and teach your children. Because I promise you, they know the history better than you do. Like, that is just like a thing, yeah? Like, we do our history. There's people out there who know our history, but we're not allowed to teach our history because they will not allow us institutions to teach history. They will not allow us to organizations, they will not allow us in businesses because it's not needed or whatever, or it's unnecessary. Or we know enough about it, or it will give less credit to the people that we have shown thus far. Again, it's just it's leaving out half the truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so again, I'm not saying give someone a job. Don't do that. I'm saying find others who can also teach you the history of America through the Black individuals who have done just as much. Like I said, Dr. Carter G. Wilson has a bunch of books about Black history and about accomplishments. So something else I would say is share accomplishments, not just the bad parts, not just slavery, but who we were before slavery, and making your students understand that our life did not start with slavery. We were killing the game back in Africa, I promise you. we were killing the game. We were music industry, we were building a lot of things. Yeah, we were doing a lot of that. Before it was called Africa, it was called Kemet. A lot of people don't know that. Does that make sense? And so being able to really get involved in the culture and asking those questions and doing the research, because I promise you, the things that the media, that just the whole system gives you and says, here's what it is, do this, teach that, that's what you have to do. I bet you they're going to leave out a lot of stuff. So we have to do the research ourselves so we can be aware, so we can be conscious. Because sometimes certain things don't add up. Again, if you're teaching history, but you're finding out, oh, I never knew about this person, that, and this, and this, and this, and this, then are you really teaching history? And if so, what history are you teaching? Are you teaching white history, American history, Black history, or history in general? What type of history are you teaching? I don't know, it's really up to you. What type of history do you want to teach? Does that make sense? Do you want to teach the history where they say, oh, let's just shed light on these people so we can show our greatness through America and the American dream? Yes? Or are we going to show, or do you want to teach just the real history? The great and the bad, the ups and the downs, the pain and the laughter, the here and now and the before, things that was happening when we were in the 13 colonies and before that. Fun fact, the first Black person to die in the war was from Boston, Massachusetts. You know his name, history teacher?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Huh?
Which one?
Revolutionary War.
The Revolutionary War, yes.
No.
A lot of people don't. Yeah, a lot of people, that is your homework. That is your homework. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm like, so Mr. History Teacher, what do you know? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. The reason why I feel this is important is because, again, there's things that we're not taught. There's things that you're not taught, and I want you to know so you can be like, oh, shit, now I need to go do research. Because what they're telling me is not enough. Because the information is out there. We just have to do it ourselves. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? get involved so you can really comprehend. Get involved so you can really understand. Yeah? I'm beautiful. I'm going to move on to other questions.
Jeff?
Yes.
Can I add a really quick perspective?
Yeah.
As like a student from a predominantly white school and like white culture and everything, I think that like, because I understand where you're coming from about the oppression, like, oh, you don't want to teach something that's so heavy all the time. But like, I feel that in school systems, at least personally in mine and like other experiences from my other white friends have had, is like super lacking senses and lacking empathy for things that we're learning. So like, and I think that if you teach in a way that establishes empathy for those things and showing their accomplishments and what was created out of it, that's so beautiful, that makes you an even better history teacher. You might find some conflict along the way with parents and everything, but you're teaching something authentic, something really real. And I think that's something that like we need in school systems. So don't be afraid to like, you know, just like dwell on those negative aspects. And I don't know what you do or like how you approach things or how your experience has been thus far, but that's my experience.
Teach from an honest place. Teach from the heart and the soul of what you feel is right. Because again, you know in your heart what's right. That's how I choose to teach when I teach dance. A lot of studios want me to appropriate hip hop. They say, no, only just teach this part of hip hop, but just don't teach that part. Don't let them know about the explicit language, about the pain that you've gone through. Like, excuse me? No. If I'm teaching hip hop, I'm teaching the entirety of hip hop because that's where I came from. That's why I am the way I am. That's why I love dance. So teach from that honest space, and when they feel that authenticity, when they feel that realness from you, they'll connect with you. Does that make sense? And because if you really care, it'll show. It will really, really, really show. And then you will really, really be respected. Really respect. I promise you, because there was one teacher in my high school in junior year of high school, one history teacher who was teaching history and was actually teaching us history. He's like, yeah, America says this, but like, there's a lot of bullshit that they also don't talk about. And I was like, you're speaking about the bad side. I've never heard this. This is interesting. He's like, and I'm saying, and this is what made, he's the one that made me interested about my own history, about Black culture. And I was just like, huh. And he was a white man, and I paid him respect. And I'll never forget about him. We call him Dr. G, because he was a G. But it was Dr. Well, I just call him Dr. G. Because to me, he was a G. Durga High. Yes.
Who was it?
Huh?
Who was the teacher? Do you remember his name?
Dr. G. Because you went to the same
Yeah.
high school. Who did you have?
For which year? Junior?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're going to remember after.
Yeah, we're going to remember after.
But yes, and so it's stuff like that's really important. Now, another question someone asked me is, do we refer to Black people as Black or colored people or blah, 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 this or that, all that? Black people. I'll say Black people, yes. The reason why I say Black people is because although people may say African Americans, not all African Americans are born in Africa. Are born in America or are born in Africa. Yeah. Not all Black people, and I understand that not all Black people who are in America are from Africa. Some are from Jamaica, Cuba, Guatemala, Haiti, Dominican Republic, all these other places. But again, it's really bringing together the color of our skin. Yeah. So the easiest thing to say, I would say, especially for me, is Black people. Yes, Black person. If someone takes offense to it, that's you come to me. Come to me. But the easiest thing to say is just Black people. Does that make sense? Yeah, because we all know there's different types of ethnicities, but just Black is just the easiest way. And I know there's African Americans, there's colored people, there's indigenous. This is a hard word. Indigenous communities. Oh, I forgot about this. Indigenous communities. Just say black people. Yeah?
So I have a question on that. Do you want to be described as black, or do you want to be described as the man with the hat and the white shirt? Like, some people say, oh, you should be colorblind, you shouldn't be described as color. And other people, no, it's important to see color.
That's a beautiful question. At the end of the day, we as black people, we want to be seen as human beings. That's it. But we know we've grown with the idea of color and separation. And so, unfortunately, that's being black. And so we've reclaimed it and we've changed it. And so we made being black become a good thing instead of a bad thing. Because we were called niggers, we were called porch monkeys, we were called niggas, we were all these terms, and we've taken that and we've changed it, which is going to go on to my other question that I was also asked. Oh, why do black people say the N-word to each other, blah, 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 all this? You know, I'll answer that. For me specifically, do the best that you can to describe someone without their skin color. And then if you so happen to, it's because a lot of people wear hats with long sweatshirts and pants and shoes and whatever. And they're like, well, can you be more specific? Well, his eyes look like this and his nose look like this. And, screw it, he's black, all right? He's black and he wears this and has this and this. Okay, there you go, okay, cool, right? He's black and he wears this, you know what I mean? And so like, that's okay, because we would do the same for you guys too, yeah? But if you are describing someone's character, the color of their skin doesn't matter. Does that make sense? If you're describing someone's soul, color does not matter there. Does that make sense? Yeah? Cool. Now it's for the question of the N-word. We've taken something that white people used to hold us back with and hurt us with, and we've reclaimed it and we've changed it. And we used it out of endearment. Yes? Because the N-word was something that we used as a classification. Or we would also use as power. They're like, oh, I'm not going to get you. And we would say that to our own because white people would make us feel low. And so if we don't want to feel low, we will say it to you so we can feel better about ourselves. And we needed to stop doing that. And so that's where Black Power came in. And now we were proud of calling each other niggas. Like, hey, what's good now, nigga? And now we put a positive connotation behind it instead of having it be a negative connotation. Yeah. And so we're not saying it to hurt each other, but we say it out of endearment. We say it because we've come such a long way that we want to be able to support each other and be like, hey, we niggas, but we proud niggas at the same time. Yeah. And some people are like, well, how come I can't say it then? I'm like, okay, makes sense. Because when white people said it, they said it mostly to hurt us. And so we decided to take it, and again, we reclaimed it. And now what frustrates our community is when people say, oh, well, that's not fair, we should be able to say it too. It doesn't work that way because you're the one who created it and called us these things. And so again, we have to change something and change it to a positive so we do not see each other as dirt, because you have deemed us as monsters, as lower than dirt. It's even in the laws. And so, me personally, I don't really care to say it. I don't like to refer to each other as niggas, but it's a popular thing in neighborhoods. It's a popular thing in the hood. And again, we use it out of endearment. And we just change it to something that's just really positive. And so when people, especially when white people, try to tell us we can't say something, you are now taking our freedom away from us again. And so when you come to us and say, well, you should be able to say that, then we're like, oh, you're doing it again. Where we finally changed something to positive, and now you're telling us we can't. When are you going to let us off this leash? Slavery is over, but you still want to keep us on this leash of this is what we can and this is what we cannot do. When can we just do shit how we want to do shit for once without being told you shouldn't be able to say that? And I'll get right to you. And that's the whole same situation with I lost my train of thought.
I was gonna say, what about brown people, what about Asian people using the N-word?
Beautiful question. Brown people, if you are living in the 1800s, you could be brown, yellow, tan, well, if you my color and darker, you were a slave. No matter what. Spanish people, we were all in the same boat. Whether you're Spanish, Indian, we were all in the same boat. Indians, native Indians, we were all in the same boat. They had it worse. They were living in a piece of poverty when they came in to their land, slaughtered them, and then enslaved them on top of that. You know, and so they had it worse. And so, in my eyes, we are all the same. You know, I don't see us as different color because, again, back in those days, they were slaves too. They were slaves too. Cubans, slaves. Guatemalans, slaves. A lot of Africans were taken to different countries and then were made into Cubans. And that's how, oh God, that's a whole history lesson. I'm not going to go into that though. But yes, I see it as us as all the same because we all went through slavery. We've all went through the same pain. Although we were not on the same boats, but we were all going through the same situation. If that makes sense. Yeah. Now, boom, ba, boom, 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 boom. Questions. So I have something called, I have a platform for a community that has people that support me. We have a community online on something called Patreon. And I'll tell you guys more about it towards the end very soon. And they ask these questions in regard to bridging the racial gap. And so one of the questions that some of the patrons asked was, how do you navigate respect and appropriation while needing to utilize certain beauty standards for necessities like wigs and weaves? Again, paying the respects and homage to those who are creating it. Yeah. For example, there's a lot of hair salons that are Black-owned businesses, and some people want to wear wigs. If you want to wear wigs, please do so. Yeah. If you all of a sudden want to have an afro but you white, go ahead. But in regards to paying respect of it, why are you doing it? Yes. Understand your purpose of what you are doing first before you do it. Yeah, it's like the same story with the girl who was raised by a Black family. What's the purpose behind what you are doing? Yes, if you are doing something that way, pay respect for it as well as get involved, understand the culture and why you are doing it, understand the purpose of what you are doing. Does that make sense? Something else someone said was, how should white people respond when they feel judged from a group of Black people? Ooh, even when they have the best intentions, they still feel they are looked down because they are white. Woo! Wow, how should white people respond when they feel judged from a group of Black people? do the best that you can and respond out of compassion. It's hard. It's really hard. Yes, do the best that you can and respond out of compassion. The reason why I say this is because there's a lot of people in the community who are still pissed. There's a lot of people in our culture who are still angry. There's a lot of people who are still carrying a lot of that resentment. And that's what's creating a lot of this gap, a lot of this destructivity, you know? And so really, really try to move forward with compassion and empathize and create dialogue. I believe dialogue is really important. If someone responds to you with rudeness, do not assume that's how the entire culture is. Because a lot of times that's what people do, especially through media. Because the media has shown a lot of the Black culture doing all these negative things, and now people have tinted a negative picture of us. But stray away from showing the beautiful side of things, the things we've been a part of, or things that we do, especially for the organization and neighborhoods. Even when you have the best intentions, look at us look at the person as someone who's not healed. Yes? Find those who are healed. Find those who you feel you can be comfortable, safe, and vulnerable with. Because there are a bunch of us out there. It's just, you just really have to find them. Yeah, you really have to just get involved in the community. And when you get involved in the community, get involved with an open mind. Yes, be open and allow yourself to get involved, be open and learn. Because there's a lot to learn. Yeah, and there's a lot of beautiful things too. Does that make sense? It's hard. It's really hard. And the reason why I say this is because a lot of people do the same thing to me. Well, how do you respond back to that? I respond to ignorant people with compassion. When people say, well, Black people shouldn't do this because they're the ones living in the streets, shooting people, blah, blah. They're the ones in the neighborhood shooting each other. So you guys are the ones that are at fault. I'm like, oh, right. I get it. I'm like, but do you understand why this is happening? I can say one thing. Black people do not shoot Black people because they are Black. It's not a thing. It's not. We're not going to be like, oh, you and me, boom! No, it's not a thing. No, it's not a thing. Yes, if we're shooting each other, it's because we have nothing to do but to play the game of survival. That's what that is. Take it to someone who's lived in the hood. Take it to someone who's around people who have been a part of gangs. Yes, it's because we have no other choices, because we have no other resources, and we have no other opportunities. So we have to do the best thing, the next best thing, which is be a part of something so we can feed our family. Let me put it in perspective for you. Let's say you lived in a house of 6 kids, one mother, father's in jail because he was selling weed to feed, to make money to feed the family. So now you're part of a family of 6 kids, and mom can only work a few hours a day, but when she works a few hours a day, she's also working other jobs, yes? And there's a baby in the house, the baby's crying, the baby doesn't have food. You go to the store, you only have 5 cents, not enough money to feed the baby. So you take something and you put it in your pocket. And you take more and you put it in your pocket because you realize you have the rest of your siblings that need to eat. So you still bring it back, you feed the baby, and hand the rest of the family chips, because that's all you can take. Because you're playing the game of survival. These are things that are happening every day. This is how I was living. I went to the store and I stole because I had no food at the house and I needed to take care of my little sister who was crying because my father was working and my mom was working at the club. And so they had to pay the bills, and the money that they had for was to get to work and back, and maybe for some noodles. But when we ran out, I had to take care of the family. Yes, people are doing this. It's not like we want to, it's just these are our own choices. Does that make sense? Yeah? What would you do in the same situation?
Same thing.
Exactly. It's not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's right. You know, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying go steal. No. It's just we don't know what else to do. Again, the game of survival. Does that make sense? Do you guys have a question that you would like to ask? Because I know I'm going to have to wrap it up. A question, anyone? Tim?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for sharing your story and building the space. I don't have a question, but
Beautiful.
after leaving, I just wanted to thank you for opening up your perspective and welcoming any questions.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, please do. I'm a dark fellow. Please. I'm a chocolate man. Let them see my face. And so, yeah. So one of the most important things in regards to bridging this gap, yes? How do we bridge the gap? Get involved. Ask questions. Support Black businesses. Not out of sympathy, yeah, but out of empathy, because you feel their purpose in what they are doing, you know, and learn, ask questions, get involved with people and communicate, create dialogue, yeah, and really do your research. If you see something, do not believe it at face value. Do your research behind it as well. Yeah, I believe dialogue is really, really important. Yes, and I always say support businesses, again, because in our community, we're playing catch up. We just want to be on the same level as everyone else. And struggle with the rest of you so we can just struggle as a humanity. So we can come together and be like, okay, it's not us that's the problem, it's someone else. But before we get there, we just need to bridge that racial gap. Yes? And so, again, one of the biggest things is asking questions and getting involved in supporting communities. And again, businesses too. And artists. Artists is a huge thing. There's a bunch of artists out there who are doing great work that a lot of people aren't seeing and a lot of people don't know about, because they either don't have the resources to publicize it or can't promote it, you know, or people don't want to talk about it, you know, because even in our community, Black people don't support Black people. It's a thing. It's really a thing, because we're trying so hard to get out and make it that we are pushing each other down so we can be like, I'm finally out of here. It's very hard for us to build with each other. But this is something I'm also trying to work on too, supporting our own community and building with each other and creating an empire so we can all move together forward as a conscious, collective community. Yeah.
I also went to a very privileged school and stuff, but how do you deal with the kids who are obviously raised in families with parents are like, that's not our problem, we can talk about it, you know, even think about it, because they're obviously privileged to even think that way. But like, then the kids think that way. And then in class, when like they're trying to teach, they'll like mention slavery and all the white people is the only Black kids are there. And it's just such, like, how do you make those families talk about it?
Beautiful question. I've learned in this life you can't make anyone do anything. I've learned, someone who told me this in Thailand, his name is Monk John, he's a monk, is that you have to teach by being an example. That's the best thing we can do, is be an example. And create dialogue, because if it's honest, people will gravitate towards that. And if you are being an example and creating and organizing and getting a lot of people involved, people will start to follow what's popular. And so when they start to follow what's popular, they'll have to like really digest the things that we are really talking about. Because real will recognize real. And real will also recognize fake. And so when fake comes into something real, they'll be like, oh shit, I won't last here that much longer. So I'm gonna have to learn some shit. And when they learn some things, they'll realize, wow, wait, this is real. Like I get it now. I get it all because we're having these discussions. Does that make sense? And so we can't make people change, but what we can do is we can provide a space, create a discussion, allow ourselves to be vulnerable, and communicate. Microscopic communication is really, really, really important. And allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. Because if we're not going to be vulnerable with each other, then how do we expect to communicate and heal each other? Yeah. So I'm not doing this just to be popular or get support, but I'm doing this to honestly heal my lineage as well as your lineage. I want us to see each other as human beings, because at the end of the day, we are all human beings. The colors of our skin doesn't matter, because we're all fighting the same fight of life, right? There's bigger problems than just race that we have to deal with. So once we come together and can actually acknowledge each other as human beings and love one another and work together, oh, it's game mother effing over. No one will be able to stop us. Yeah, and some people are afraid of that. And some people can't handle the truth. And if they can't handle the truth, bring the truth to them. And just be the example. Because if you show that you can handle the truth, then they have no trouble to handle the truth. Does that make sense? And if they still try to keep running away from the truth is going to catch up with them. Because life is the truth. And we have to recognize that. And we can't run away from life. Because it's always going to be there. As much as we want to ignore things or whatever, but it's there. Like, it's real. Men will love men, women will love women. Like, love is just love. It's going to happen whether we like it or not. We just have to learn to accept it. We have to learn to accept each other. Whatever race, whatever size, males, females, however, we just have to accept each other so we can heal each other. It's not our job, but it's our responsibility. We don't have to, but we should. But for us to heal each other, we have to heal ourselves. That's why I'm here. Because I learned how to heal myself and let go of that pain and resentment. And so I want to share this with the rest of you guys. So you can also help me heal the rest of the world too. Yeah? I want to thank you guys. Something I also want to share too is I'm holding these discussions on my Patreon. I have something called a Patreon where I'm holding these discussions weekly, on a weekly basis, and creating a community where we are sharing information, asking questions, and being able to provide resources to each other. And I also bring other artists and as well as other activists to share resources and also share information in this community so we can all learn together. It's called Patreon. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Patreon. But Patreon is a platform for artists as myself as well. And it's something to subscribe to. And it's not just something to subscribe to where like it's just money in my pocket, but it helps me pay my team. Yes, because they're the ones who also help me get these things together. Yeah, I always say I eat my family needs, and I always put my family before me, and I always take care of my home before me, and so we can all grow together and take care of each other. Because at the end of the day, it's about taking care of each other. Yeah. And so again, it's called Patreon. I'm pretty sure it's on the walls over there too, but if you want, we can speak more about it after this. We can talk one-on-one. It's called patreon.com/JeffJD. It's probably going to be changed to one month. I can talk to you more about it. But it's just basically a community where we can just communicate with each other, interact with each other, ask each other questions all the time. I'm doing live streams every week, so we can just continue these conversations. There are a lot of questions that were not answered. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. You're more than welcome to get involved in this community too. And so we can just continue the conversation and continue bridging this gap that we just so obviously need to bridge because it's just necessary. Yeah. I know I went over time, I apologize, but thank you guys again for listening, and I appreciate you all, really do. So, yeah, it's closed, yeah. If you also have questions on your papers, you can pass them along to me as well, and I'll try to answer them in the future, or again, the weekly sessions, if you guys decide to join. We can talk more about it amongst ourselves. You can talk to my team about it and know about it as well, so.
Where's your website posted?
It's also posted on the wall too, yeah.
I can write it down for you as well. If you have your paper.
Get up. How do you get up?
You want to get the same over here too?
Yeah. Peace, guys. 1 love, 2 loves, 3 loves.
No, we
All right.
need outro for all of them. Oh, she already
Yeah,
ended
guys.
those. No, it's already gone.
We about to leave. We about to be out this bitch. We know.
I think you
It's
just
still.
Hello.
Oh, it's already. We already
That's
got
what
it.
I'm.
Yeah, guys. We're about to get off. All right. 1 time, 2 time.
Oh, okay.
Did you say
Bye. No.
She broke the wall.
No.
You say the questions from Zoom?